Hi, I'm Heather, and I'm with the Performance Institute. I'm a fellow here, and I teach the strategic planning and the associate level classes. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about strategic planning. We're going to talk about the basics of strategic planning as we work to prepare you to take the whole initial week to get your associate certification. Your associate certification starts with the base of strategic planning. Why do we need strategic planning? Well, let's look at that in more depth. We need strategic planning because we want to plan from the top down and execute from the bottom up. As leadership in our organization, we plan at the top. We set what the priorities of the organization are, what the goals are, where do we want to be, what do we aspire to be? And then our management levels execute. They execute the plan leadership sets. So, a little bit about me, since we're going to spend the next little bit together. I'm Heather, and I've worked in the government sector for more than 19 years. I started in the budget office, where I worked as an analyst who not only worked on setting the budget, but on performance management. What are the measures we need to do to reach the goals of the city? From there, I went into public works and I worked in detail there in capital planning, strategic planning, performance management planning. Now I'm back in the budget office where I'm focused on the 5-year plans. Where are we going to go as an organization as a whole? Working with our city council on are the plans of the city? What are the goals that city council wishes to achieve? And how do we get them there? How do we get them there through strategic planning within the organization as a whole, within each division and department of the organization? And then how do we show what we're accomplishing? Before we can show what we're accomplishing, before we can formulate really good performance measures, we need a solid strategic plan. So we have pillars of a high-performing organization. To have a high-performing organization, all 5 of these areas should be aligned. We should have performance management that says, how are we doing? Financial management that states the finances that are attached to it, and the finances should be directed towards the highest priority we want to achieve. Process and IT management, workforce management, acquisition and sourcing. These other pillars cannot occur if we do not know where we want to be and we have the finances in place to accomplish those goals. All of these pillars must be held up with the base of a strong strategic plan. So we're going to start there. We're going to talk about setting a strong strategic plan so you can build your pillars on. You can build a high-performing organization through those pillars. So when we have a strategic plan, a strong strategic plan that the organization understands and can relate to, does the following things. It increases goal attainment. The organization, every individual within the organization understands what the goals are we are wanting to achieve, and they work towards achieving them. It aligns us so we can achieve the things that matter the most. It ensures effective use of resources. We know what our goals are. We know where we want to be. So we can set what we're going to do to accomplish these goals. We can set how we're going to do these, what we need to accomplish these things so we can complete our goals. By focusing on what we must do to achieve our goals, we make sure we're using our resources wisely. Our strategic plan is going to serve as a communication tool for all stakeholders. We're going to be able to communicate to all stakeholders, internally, externally. How are we doing? Where do we want to be and how are we doing? Importantly, a strategic plan that sets what our goals are, sets the priorities, lets us focus on what do we need to be doing. By doing that, we can do quarterly updates. We can do regular updates to see if we're on the right path. Organizations, especially government organizations, take a little bit to change. We can't just turn the ship on a dime. So when we see how we're doing along the way, we can focus on achieving those goals. And finally, it fosters the development of realistic program and project planning. So with that, if we create a strategic plan and we do it right, we're going to deliver results. So strategic planning initiatives, when they're done well, they deliver the results. We've all been through strategic planning initiatives where we've sit and went through the motions. But to have a strategic plan that is effective, it needs to go beyond just going through the motions. How do we go through these motions and actually utilize what we did? That is a question I get asked often by our city council. Great, we went through the motions, we've set what we're going to do. Now, is this just going to go sit in a shelf somewhere, or are we going to actually utilize it? So that is the importance of not only having a plan, but using it to deliver results, is taking that plan and using it. So by not only stating the goals, but what are we going to do to achieve these goals, we're able to focus on the activities that matter most to the organization's mission and goals. We're able to pinpoint what we must do to achieve the goals the organization has set. We've increased alignment of resources and programs to achieve the results. So we know what we must do. We know how it's all connected. We're going to set logic models, which is another class in our first week, associate week, that teaches us, now that we have the strategic plan, how do we make sure we're doing the right things? Our logic model class makes sure we do the right things. We have the right things set to accomplish. It allows us to recruit the right people. We know exactly what we need to do, so we know the right types of people we need to acquire to complete these areas. So we're able to pinpoint the skills we need in recruiting. When we have these high-performing individuals, a strategic plan that is connected lets us retain them. Lets us retain people. People understand where they fit in the organization, why their job's important, and they're more likely to stay. It allows us to work on trainings that matter the most to accomplish. We're not just sending people to training to send people to training, or guessing, oh, well, I think you could use Excel training, or I think you could use this training. We've all been through that, where we've been sent to trainings because someone thought that you might need it. We can pinpoint each position and what training does each position need to accomplish the activities we require to achieve our goals. And finally, we have return on investment for training and development. We're actually utilizing the training we're sending people to. People are coming back from training and able to implement what they've learned immediately. So we see that return on investment. Strategic planning process leads to the following. So when we have a good strategic plan in place and we know where we want to be, it's going to table the ineffective activities or programs. And this one can be a hard pill to swallow because sometimes pet projects are not the projects or the activities that are accomplishing the goals. They might be things that we wish to do, but when we're focused on what must we do to achieve our goals, we very quickly see what we're doing that is not letting us achieve those goals. It's taking resources away from where we need to be. We can develop new programs. So we know what we need to be doing, and we develop these new programs to make sure we are accomplishing these activities. We have our organizational structure, and it might need to be altered. We might see that the organizational structure in place isn't what we need to accomplish the goals. We can make these strategic decisions to align with what the organization must accomplish. We reallocate resources to critical areas. So we know all the things we need to do to accomplish the goals of the organization, and we can allocate the resources appropriately. We can reallocate resources from activities or programs that maybe we shouldn't be doing or we don't need to do as much of. We go deeper into this in the strategic planning process, how to identify these and what to do with them. Rethinking required employee skill sets. So again, we know what activities we need the employees to do. We can say these are the skill sets they need. And finally, we adopt new data collection and management tools. We know we need to be having quality data so we can report on what matters most. We can take that data and turn the metrics, turn the performance measures into key performance indicators. We learn about this in our performance management class at the end of our associate level week. We learn about what metrics, performance measures, and key performance indicators are, and how to attach those to our logic model so we show accomplishment towards our strategic plan. In our strategic planning class, this is an overview of the 2-day class. We go into each of these areas in depth. We start with where you are. We start with what are the key products you deliver and services? What are the things that you currently deliver? And we determine who your customers are. Not just customers, but who are your key customers? Who do you primarily serve? And what are the values of your organization? When you know where you currently sit as an organization, what you do and why you do it, then you can say, okay, here's where we are. Here's where we want to be. As we go towards your destination, in class, we sit and we go over what is a mission statement. Is your mission statement valid? Is it correct? And we work on creating mission statements. We look at good mission statements so we know what a good mission statement is. Then we talk about vision and set goals. Once we know where we want to be, we can set the vision. So the mission is a statutory authority that binds us to it, where we are grounded in. The vision is more aspirational. So it's what we want to be when we grow up. And what are the goals attached to that? What are our large organizational goals? We talk about doing a strategic assessment to figure out what our strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats are, keeping in mind what our mission and vision are, what our goals of the organization are. What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that are going to help us achieve this or that we're going to have to overcome? Not hurt us, but what are the things we're going to have to overcome to achieve these goals? And finally, we look at our goals and we make sure our goals and objectives are aligned. Once we know where we want to be, then how are we going to get there? What are we going to do to achieve these goals? This is where we set our path there. So our strategic planning class is very grounded in where you are in your destination, as well as the very beginning of your path there. We work on developing strategies. However, our logic model class goes deep into developing the strategies. What are the things we must do to accomplish our goals? Then our performance measure class, at the end of our associate level week, we talk about setting our measures and our targets. What measures are going to show us accomplishment of these goals? What are we going to, and what should we be doing? The targets help us set that and know if we are doing the right things, if we're on the right path, if we're heading in the right direction. And then finally, on our path there, we talk about aligning resources and developing initiatives. These are both very, we hit these in strategic planning very high level. However, aligning resources is tied to a 2-day performance-based budgeting class, and developing initiatives is tied into a 2-day data analytics class. In our strategic planning class, we go deep into these 7 elements. We talk a lot about why do we exist, our mission, where are we going? Again, our vision and outcome goals, and what must change to get there. So what are we doing now to what should we be doing? What are the things that need to change? Those become our strategies. Those are the things we need to change to accomplish our goals. We also talk about products and services we need to deliver to execute our strategies. We talk about aligning our resources, what human, financial, and capital resources are necessary to deliver these items. How do we want to operate? What are the values of our organization? And our measures help us know if we're on track. Most of these we really cover in our strategic planning class, but they are covered all throughout our associate level week. However, to have a high-performing government, we must have these 7 strategic elements. In strategic planning, we talk about what it takes to build a results-oriented organization. Again, why do we exist? What's the fundamental reason for our existence? Is our mission, our vision and strategic outcomes. Where do we want to be? What are we going to do to get there? What needs to change? What are the attitudes, behaviors, and conditions that need to change to ultimately accomplish this? What are the goals of the organization? How are we going to do this? What are the things we're going to do to accomplish these goals? Then we make sure everything we're doing is aligned so we can line our programs to the accomplishment of our goals and set resources. We talk about the strategic management framework. So we'll go in depth into what are our values of an organization, what drives our organization to success. And then our mission, our outcome goals, and our strategies. These really define why we exist. So not only we talk about the values, what drives our organization to accomplish what we need to, but then our mission, outcome, goals, and strategy, the very fundamentals of why we exist. And our performance measures. These show us if we are on the right path to accomplishing what we've set in our outcome goals and our strategy. Once we have set our strategic plan, we're going to adopt an aggressive performance management agenda. So then it becomes a regular business plan. Every year we set our plan. We look at our plan. We identify goals for the year. We maybe need to redefine strategies. Do we need to identify resources? Do we need to fix our resources? If we need to be accomplishing something at 100% and we're only at 50, we need to identify the resources we need to hit the expectations that leadership expects. We're going to set our forecast and our targets. Then we're going to implement. We're going to implement that plan. With whatever resources we received, we're going to implement it. And then we're going to evaluate. We're going to evaluate regularly, quarterly. We're going to evaluate at the end of the year. The quarterly evaluations let us change course if we see that we are not on the right path. End of the year evaluation lets us know how we did. And we can then dive deeper into some very specific ways to evaluate. We can look at benchmarking. We can benchmark ourselves against ourselves, see how we're doing against what we did last year, as well as against other organizations. Are we on the right path? Just because we did better than we did last year, is it where we should be? We can look at this for specific programs. We can look at this for specific processes to make sure that our process is running efficient and effective. We can evaluate ourselves at a high level and at very individual activity and process levels. The performance measures that are attached throughout the whole thing let us know how we're doing. So we can build on that. We'll know what we need to evaluate specifically. We'll know what we're doing great and what we might need a little bit more work on. It'll also help us identify where we might need additional resources. so we can ask for the appropriate resources to accomplish our goals. And then we just start over. We start over with our plan at the beginning of our fiscal year, and it becomes a regular business process once we have our initial strategic plan completed. So that's a little overview of strategic planning and a little bit into the full week that dives into the strategic plan, lets us set the goals of the organization. Logic model lets us build the plan, lets us take the plan and build the activities attached to it. It lets us show the picture of what we must do. And then our performance measure class tells us how we can form key performance indicators, performance measures, and metrics to show that we're actually accomplishing the goals, show what we're doing. At the end of it, we do have a test, and then when you pass the test, you get certified. For additional classes, we have the professional level week and the advanced level week as well. So thank you for joining me in this past 25 minutes. I'm glad that you were here. Thank you. I hope to see you in a class at the Performance Institute, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.